Morning. Learning at Chutz for Shlem. We're on Daf Kuf Beis and Aleph, right? Yeah, I believe so. By the two dots near the bottom. That sounds right.
Yeah,
Near the
Bali
bottom,
Moment.
like 10 lines from the bottom. Not no. That's not Bali Moment. The Mishnah had said we were talking in the Mishnah about who gets a chelik of the kachim to eat, and we said Bali Moment get. Even though we had just said before, whoever we said after Kochen Roy Lavoid and Chaylik Ubasa, but Balmum is an exception to that. We said it doesn't make a difference whether it's a Balmum, a permanent Balmum or a temporary Balmum. Where does this come from that a Balmum, even though he can't do Avoida, is still entitled, the Kain is a Balmum, is still entitled to get his share of the Karbanis. Tan Rabbanon, Kol Zochar L'Rabbis Balimum. Come to be Malimum. Lemai. If it's to tell you that he's allowed to eat, Balmum is allowed to eat the basar of kachim, meaning the basar that goes to Kehanim. Kvarnema, Lecha Melikav, Mikachei Akadoshim. This is the pasuk that is actually talking about Balmum. Melikadoshim Yachal, the Torah is talking about Balmum, and it says he can eat. Ela Lechaluka. So it must be that it's telling you something about a Balmum. Kol Zochar is coming to be Marbe. It must be saying that he's not just that he's allowed to eat it, but that he's entitled to get his share. It's not just that he can go be a schnorrer by some other kayin, but every mishmar, each kayin of the mishmar was entitled to get his chelik. So even if he's a Balmum, he's entitled to get a chelik when it's his mishmar. Talnya idach kol Zochar l'rabis bali mumin. We already said, no, this is in Pasuk. You see on the side, the first Kol Zachar was Yud Beis. That was a Vayikra Vav Yud Aleph. Now we're talking about the one where it says Kol Zachar Vayikra Vav Chaf Aleph. So it's different Pasuk which says Kol Zachar B'Kayanim, Kol Zachar B'Bnei Aaron, says it actually 3 times. So the first one already told us that a Balmum gets a Chalukah. So what's this next one for? So Zaktamara Shiyachal. Ainli Elatam Vanasa Balmum. I would think that when the Torah says that a Balmum can eat and can get a Chalukah, that's only if you got, as he was, he got older in life, something happened, he became a Balmum. But Ikrai, someone who is born with a mum, maybe it's almost like he never becomes a kain. He's precluded, even though someone who gets a mum, like if he becomes a lefty when he's older, he becomes a Baal mum. But someone who was born he was born a lefty, or was born, can't really tell if he's born a lefty. He was born missing a toe. Maybe that Baal mum will not be allowed to eat. Talmud Laima Kol Zachar. So we have an extra. We could tell you even someone who's a Balmum for when he's born. Tanya Idach, Kol Zachar. Then we have a third pasuk, Kol Zachar. This is in Vayikra Zayin Vav. The Rabbis Balmum, Lama Ilach L'Rekvaram, Ilach L'Rekvaram, Maybe the Balmum Mikra Harikvaram. Shiyach. So it's come to tell you differently. Chiddush. Ain't Liela Balmum Kavua, Balmum Iver Minayin. How do I know even a Balmum? Maybe that only tells you a permanent Balmum is allowed to get a chalukah. But a Balmum Iver, maybe he doesn't get a chaluk. Zok the Gemara, Tamalay Mekol Zachar. So the Klapi Laya. It should be exactly the opposite way around. If anything, I would think a temporary Balmum can get a chaluk and a permanent one won't. Why are we saying it that for sure the permanent Balmum gets a chaluk, but maybe the temporary doesn't? You have to switch it around. You have to reverse it. No, it was correct. But still, I would think that a temporary Balmum cannot get a chelik. It's like a tame. Maybe a person who has a temporary balmum is like a tame. A tame, so a kain who's a tame is not. He's not. He doesn't get a zera that for the rest of his life he can't eat. Just as long as he's tame, he can't eat. So maybe this is the same sort of thing. When there's a temporary mum, so he becomes like a tame that he, for the as long as he's about mum, he can't eat. So it's easier to impose that on someone. But someone who's a permanent balmum, that we don't want to make it that he can never eat. I might think that someone who is temporarily a balmum wouldn't be allowed to eat, and he wouldn't be able to get a chelik. So that's what the pasuk is coming to tell you. Continued in the Mishnah said, "Kol she'ena roi, kol she'ena roi la'avoda eini chelik b'basar." Whoever is not able to do the avoda is not chelik in the basar. We just went through all the psukim to tell you it's not just that he can eat, but also he gets a chelik. And then the Mishnah follows that up immediately and says that anyone who's not able to do the avodah can't get, but the balmum can. V'su, and also it's mashma haroi la'avodah chelik. It's mashma that anyone who can do the avodah gets a chelik. Harei tamei bekarbanos tzibur. Carbon tzibur, tuma hutra b'tzibur. That you're allowed to bring a carbon tzibur b'tuma. So a kayin whose tamei is royal avodah, he could do the avodah. But any chelik, but he doesn't get a chelik. We madcha the tuma for the purpose of doing the avodah, but there's no din that he gets a chelik. So both parts don't seem to be true. Both that we say someone who's not royal avodah doesn't get a chelik, and also someone who is royal avodah always gets a chelik. So when it says royal avodah, it doesn't mean roy to do the avodah. What it means is royal lecha. Someone who's able to eat, he can also get a chelik. So the kayin tameh who does the avodah b'tzibur, he's not able to eat, so therefore he's also not able to get a chelik. And a balmum, since he is able to eat, he is able to get a chelik. Correctly, Marvar, katan the royal achila ve'ena chelik. What about a katan? You're being mashma that anyone who is royal achila is able to get his portion, but a katan is allowed. A kayin who's a katan, his father can give him part of the basar, but he doesn't get a chelik. He's not entitled to go demand that he be given his portion. So Gemara Halei Katani. The Gemara says, you're asking a kasha because the Mishnah said whoever's not royal avodah is eina. Which understanding is kol she'eina royal achila doesn't get a chelik. The Mishnah never said the reverse, that whoever is royal avodah gets to eat. We just deduced that. So it never said that, so it's not necessarily the case. Like you said, a katan is an example of someone who is roy to eat and is not roy to get a chalukah. It's not always the case. So you can't ask a kasha from what you deduced from the Mishnah. So now that we're saying that we're only saying one kind, we're only seeing in the Mishnah one half of this, that someone who's not roy la'achila is not roy to get a chelik. So go back to the first teretz. It said, the Mishnah said, whoever's roy la'avodah is not roy la'avodah. Imishum tameh lekatani. And tameh, like we just said, we're asking a kasha from tameh. We asked the kasha on that a carbon tzibur can be brought b'tumah, and yet it's not roy for a chalukah. The Mishnah never said that part, that whoever is roy la'avodah is roy la'achila to get a chalukah. The Mishnah balmum, and you asked from the first part, the Mishnah does say whoever is not roy la'avodah is not roy to get a chelik. Balmum is not roy la'avodah and does get a chelik. Rachmana Rabbi, there's a special pasuk to be marba balmum, like we just said. So that's not a kasha. The general rule is certainly the case that whoever is not roy la'avodah can't get a chelik, but the balmum is an exception. So the Gemara, afilu tameh b'shas rikas damim v'torah b'shas hektar chalav me'ein chelik. Even someone who's tamei at the time of the when you finish the avodas hadam, when you do the zrikas hadam, and then he becomes he becomes tar at the time of the hektar chalav when you put the emurim on the mizbeach ein a chaylik. Even though the kohen was at that point tar and therefore able to do the avodah, he doesn't get a chaylik. So tomorrow tar b'shas zrikas dam and v'tamei b'shas hektar chalav. It would be the other way around if he was tar b'shas zrikas dam, but tam b'shas hektar chalav chaylik. So tomorrow masnisim like Abba Shol. A mission is not like Abba Shol. The Tanya Abba Shol he has to be tar both at the time of the Zrikas Dam as well as at the time of Aktaras Emurim. The Amakra Makras Dam Ashlam Besachelav. Daktilu Fafilu Hakchalavim Nami Boy. That it doesn't. He has to be tar. To be able to say that he's someone who's roy la'avoda, he has to both be tar at the time of the Hakravas Hadam, of the Zrikas Hadam, as well as at the time of Haktaras Imur. Boy Ravashi. Ravashi asks a question according to Abba Shol. Nitme ben tayimal. So according to Abba Shol, the kohen needs to be tar both at the time of Zrikas Hadam and during the time of Haktaras Imur. What happens if he became Tami in between? B'shas Zriku, b'shas Haktarim. He be'inan va'ika. Do we need just that has to be tar at the times of the zrika and the haktara? Does he have to be tar the entire time? It's a good kasha. We don't know what the answer is according to Abba Shol. Amar Rav. Hai dina mirab Eliezer b'Reb Shimon Gamirna. The Amar. This din was learned from Rabbi Eliezer of Shimon, the Amar Bebeis HaKisei, that he learned it. It came to him while he was sitting in the Beis HaKisei. The Gemara on the bottom of the Amar is going to ask, how can someone learn in the Beis HaKisei? And the answer is, he tried not to, but there was nothing he could do about it. His mind does person's mind does what he wants. If he's in the Beis HaKisei, he can't leave the Beis HaKisei. He doesn't have a choice. And his mind went to learning and he couldn't stop. So just because it came to him the Beis HaKisei doesn't mean he can't share it. What is he supposed to do? Danta. So we cleared about the file. We asked the following question. But full yoim. If a tful yoim, this is going to be really the source for all of the different types of people who are not able to do avodah. And they want to get a chelik. Why they can't get a chelik? But tful yom is somebody who is currently tamei at night. He's going to become tar. He already was toivel, but he needs to wait for the evening. And he said he was a kohen. He said, I want to get my chelik. If by a chatas, now we already learned on the top, right? We learned from the pasuk that said we learned back in the Mishnah, it has to. We learned by a chatas that someone who is puzzle to bring the chatas, who doesn't do the avodah, who couldn't do the avodah, doesn't get a chelik. So if by a chatas, if a kohen wants to bring his own chatas, if a kohen has to bring a chatas, he's able to say, I'm going to do the chatas myself, and I'm going to keep the basar for myself. The basar of a chatas goes to a kohen. Normally gets distributed to the people in the mishmar. But if a kohen brings his own chatas, he gets to keep it. And even though the kohen has the ability by chatas to keep his own chatas, his basar of his chatas, the chischa mechatas Yisrael, but you're not able to get the chelik. You're not allowed to demand the chelik of a chatas Yisrael because you're a tvul yom. Makom shehur kechacha b'minchascha, by a mincha. That a kohen who brings a mincha, he has no ability to get the silas. The din is that a mincha brought by Yisrael, the silas goes to the kohanim. But a mincha brought by a kohen, the silas gets burnt, doesn't get eaten. Ein edin she'edicha minchas Yisrael. If you're trying now to get the minchas Yisrael, even though you're a tvul yom, certainly you can't do it. If you weren't able to get it by a chatas, which is more, you have more kayach, you certainly shouldn't get it by a mincha where you have less kayach. So he says back to him, So the kohen who's trying to get it said back to him, "Oman di chasani michatas Yisrael." That which you I was pushed away from Chatz Yisrael. Shekshem sheyafa koichi kach yafa koichacha. He says to this is like almost like a dialogue between two kohanim. The kohen who is entitled to get his chelik is saying to the kohen who is a tvul yom, I can make a kal v'chaymer from chatas that you don't get by chatas, so you certainly don't get by mincha. So he said to him, listen, just the same way you're saying, just because you were able to be doicha me by a chatas, that you have more koyach. Shekshem sheyafa koichi kaf yafa koichacha, you have more koyach there. Titchay mincha shekshem shehura koichi kaf hura koichacha. The kohen is saying, basically the kohen who is tamei is telling the kohen who's tar, whatever tiny you're going to say that I have less koyach here, that means you also have less koyach here to get it. You're saying I shouldn't get it because I have less koyach, but you're the one who's taking it away from me, and you have less koyach. So just like I have less koyach to get it for myself, you have less koyach to keep it away from me and say it belongs to you. So that Itaka, the kohen who is tar, answered back to him, listen, in the end, there's a pasuk that refers to a mincha. In the end, it comes down to a pasuk. It doesn't make a difference with all the kal v'chaymes. I didn't have to really say a kal v'chaymer. There's a pasuk that says that a kohen who's a tvul yom doesn't get a mincha, doesn't get from the mincha. So then we have the same thing by chatas. Teili b'chatas Yisrael v'aychel. He said, give me from a chatas Yisrael v'aychel. Now we're just saying this is really just to bring out the pasuk that we had said before that says, where do we see that a chatas a kohen doesn't get? Says, so the kohen tar says by the kohen, by mincha that you're now allowed to get a chelik. The chischa minchas Yisrael, we already said before that you can't get minchas Yisrael. That the kohen tar, have a shvacha tain on it, and even so, you the kohen tamei were not able to get the mincha, the leftover mincha of the Yisrael. A place where I, the kohen tar, have a stronger tain on it, that I get someone else's. If I bring my own chatas, I could get it. And I could also get the chatas of Yisrael. I should be able to push you away for the chatas of Yisrael. He has the opposite taina over here, that the same way you're saying you have a stronger taina to it as the tar, I as the tar may also have a stronger koyach to it. So your kal v'chaymer is useless. So the kohen says, he said to him, the kohen tar says, listen, there's a pasuk. The pasuk says only the one who does the avodah. If you can go do the avodah, then you could eat. But since you're a tvul yom, you're not able to do the avodah. Therefore, you can't get your chelik. So he said to him, listen, okay, I'm precluded from getting the chatas and the mincha. I want to get by a shlomim, the kohanim get a chelik of the chaz of a shaykh. Maybe I should get that. By where you are a stronger taina by a chatas that you could have done it for yourself and taken the chelik, the chischa me chatas Yisrael, we still pushed you away, said you can't get a chatas Yisrael. Malcolm shahur kechacha b'shlamim shahelim b'hen el chaz of a shaykh. The by a shlamim, the entire basar doesn't go to the kohen. He only gets one section of it. Certainly, you're not going to be entitled to get when you're tvul yom. So he says to him, you bring the raya from chatas, because chatas the kohanim get the whole thing, and even so I don't get it because I have a shvach koyach. But there's also a shvachkeit in chatas that it can't be given to the sheva avodah. I can only a chatas, the basar of a chatas that belongs to a kohen can only be eaten by the kohen zachar. It can't be eaten by his wife and his avodim. How can you use chatas as a kal v'chaymer to push me away and say as a tvul yom I can't eat the chaz of a sheikh of a shlamim? I have more kayach by a chaz of a shaykh of a shlamim because it has a chumrah that it has a kula. I'm sorry that I have a stronger hand in it because the chaz of a shaykh that goes to a kayin of a shlamim he can give to his wife and to his avadim. So he says so the kayin Torah says back to him, we have a pasuk for shlamim as well. I don't have to depend on the kavachim. So if you could go and be zayrik, then you can eat, but you can't because you're tul yaim, and therefore you don't get. Yatzul yaim kule v'chaburav al roishay, the tul yaim with all of the kavachimers that the Kayin Torah was trying to bring to him, that he was able to refute. He still was left with they all landed on his head because there was a pasuk on each one saying that the Tvul Yaim could not get a chelik of the basar. And this doesn't just apply to Tvul Yaim, it will also include an Einin who's not able to do the Avaida, and the Mechusar Kapara who's not able to do the Avaida. Everyone's going to all be, anyone who can't do the Avaida other than a Balmum is going to be excluded from getting basar. Why do we stop there? We mentioned three things that the Kahanim are entitled to. Why don't he ask from Bechar? Let him say, I want to get from the Bechar. Even though I can't do the Avodah of the Bechar, let me get the Chelik of the Bechar. And then it's a little bit of the Rishonim talk about the fact that the Bechar is a little bit different situation because the basar of Bechar, the way it works by Bechar, if a Bechar is born, the Bailim of Yisrael gives it to whichever Kayin they want. And then that Kayin brings it as a carbon, and he gets the basar as the Bailim he becomes the owner, and he's the Bailim of the Bechar. So it's sort of like, at this point, he's saying it to the owner, and he's telling the person who had the Bechar, give me the Bechar so that I could bring it as a carbon and do the Avodah. So, Mishum da Amalei, the reason why, because he'll tell back to him, Eitz on the Shoiv Avadim, that I'm not able to give it, to share it with my Noshim and Avadim, the Chischa Mechatas Yisrael, you weren't able to even get the Chatz Yisrael. Malcolm Shiyaf, Koichi Bechar, the Kula Dilehi, Bechar, that I get the entire basar and I could do with it as I wish. And certainly I can push you, the Kayin Tvul Yaim, away from it. Umam dechisani mechata shekshem shehur koichacha kachur koichi tutchanim bebechar shekshem sheyafa koichacha kavyacha koichi. And again, the Kayin Tom makes the same claim. Whatever you're going to say is a koich that you have, it's going to be my koich is also going to be stronger. The Torah says, as dam tizrik, if you're the one who could be zarik the dam, then you can get the basar. But since you're not able to be zarik the dam, you're not able to do the avodah because you're a tul yaim, you're precluded. V'idach parach miksiv upsarim lakayim hazarik upsarim yelachaksev afilu lakayin acha. And v'idach, the other man, the Amar, what does this v'idach mean? Miksiv upsarim lakayin hazarik upsarim yelachaksev.
Well, Shimon. No, who
didn't mention this one, but I'm just thinking about it. Like, what he's saying, you can't learn from this pasuk. So why isn't it a good taina then? Saying this pasuk is the reason why he would say the taka the kayin can get from the bechar would be masking to the taina. That's what I'm worrying.
Sounds like it.
Okay. Yeah, just occurred to me now. So tomorrow, how could he say what he had learned in the Beis HaKisei? Person is not allowed to think in learning in the Beis HaKisei. So Rashi loinsa shiny. So Rashi loinsa shehoisa shmuasa shegura bepiv umahara bar al karchai. He was constantly thinking and learning, and it came to him against his will. Similar thing in Kedushin. Okay. So it's not a heter for us. It has to be someone who's constantly learning. You can't say, if you just spend a couple of hours a day learning, that, that's how I'm going to spend my bathroom time. Dr. Mishnah. So we've been talking about the basar until now. Who gets the basar? Who doesn't? Who loses their rights to get a chelek or to eat the basar? But a corollary, one of the things that goes along with the basar typically is the oira, the hides of the behemoth. It's not exactly in the same class, as we're going to see. Well, generally, a shlamim, the leather of a shlamim, the basar goes to the owners, and they also get the oir. But a chatas, where the basar goes to kaihanim, and like we're going to see in oila as well, the basar, the oir is not burnt on the mizbeach by oila. So by chatas and oila, or asham as well, as we're going to see, the oir goes to the kaihanim. So zok the mission. Wherever the carbon cannot be brought, because like we're going to see as it became, Rashi says, where it had a psul, before it was zrika. Once zrika is over, it doesn't make a difference. But if it became a puzzle of carbon before the zrika's dam, the kehanim don't get the ar. Shenemar, by an oila. Shenemar, oila's ish. Oila she'also ish. It has to be an oila that provides a kapara to a person. And if it didn't provide a kapara, then the basar doesn't go to ish. Right? The pasuk says, "If a kohen amakev is oilish is oira oila asher hikel lakoyin lo yiyah." This is the pasuk that says that the kohen gets the oir, but it says oilish ish only if it's oilish ish that it provides a kapara. Oila shen zok the Mishnah Vayta oila shen nishchata shaloi lishma, an oila that was geshachten shaloi lishma afal pi shaloi also l'bayalim oira l'kehanim. Even though the bayalim do not get a kapara, so one might think it wouldn't be also l'ish. Still, the oira goes to kehanim. It's still a kosher carbon, right? We remember from the beginning of the Masechta that the oila, it's only a chatas and a pesach that we say if it's shaloi l'shma, the carbon is basal. But the other carbon is kosher, but just the bailim, le'el bailim shem chayv. So we're saying that since the carbon is kosher, the bailim, the oir is going to go to kehanim. It's not going to be considered like a puzzle of carbon. And we're going to have to answer that also ish seems to say that it's only someone that got a kapara, and here he didn't get a kapara. Again, the Gemara is going to explain, even though it says oilos ish, which would seem to mean only oila from a man, it's not the case. Even a woman who brings the oila goes to kehanim. Oiris kachim kalim, so we did oilos. We saw pasuk oilos. Oiris kachim kalim lebailim. Oiris of kachim kalim don't go to the kain, they go to the bailim. Oiris kachim lekehanim. Oiris kachim go to kehanim. Kal v'chayim. Umam oilos shalei zachu b'psara zachu ba'ira kal v'chayim. If by the oila the kehanim get the oir, even though they don't get the basar, kachim zachu b'psara, they didn't yisku ba'orin. It would be the case by regular kachim, non-oilus, that the kehanim get the basar, like a chatas and a asham. Certainly they should get the iris in that case. And Zaktamara, ein mizbeach yechiach. And don't prove from the fact that the carbon oila, the basar gets burnt on the mizbeach. So maybe I would say that if the basar goes on the mizbeach, also the oil should go on the mizbeach. The Gemara, she'en lo yar b'chol makom. There's no such din that the ar gets burnt on the mizbeach. Ar goes either to kehanim or to the bailim. There's no possibility of it being burnt on the mizbeach. We don't have any precedent for that. So you can't ask a kasha from the fact, you can't bring any rayas from the fact that the oila, the ar, does not go to the mizbeach, even though it's getting the basar. can make a kasha on this kal v'chaymer from the carbon oil, the mizbeach not getting the carbon oil. Tan Rabban, oilus ish, prat lo oilus hektish, divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Yehuda, it says oilus ish, he learns it not just like we learned it in the Mishnah, but he learns from it as well to exclude oilus hektish. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Yehuda, I'm a prat lo oilus ger. He says it's coming to exclude oilus ger. In fact, the Gemara, my prat lo oilus hektish. What does oilus hektish mean? Obviously, there's no such thing as hektish being a carbon. We have karbonis tzibur. We don't have something that was makdish, lebedek habayis. It's not a carbon. So we're going to see. Amr Chia bar Yosef. Prat la'oila hava min hamoisus. What it means to say is that if someone has, like Rashi explains, an asham that, let's see, min hamoisus, like Rashi, the whole ashamas shel riyah, all ashamas that have to be put away l'riyah, they're not able to be bought. Could go in tmuras asham, like when someone exchanges asham, but asham shemeisu bailav, asham that the bailam died, shekipru bailav, or the bailam got a different asham, it was lost, and they brought a different one. Ba'acha the kaimalan yiru v'yimku v'yiflu d'meim l'dav. On all those things we say, you wait for it to get a mum, and then you sell it and use its value to buy an adava. What is that adava? Who oilus kayitz hamizbeach. That's the oilus kayitz hamizbeach. The lav oilus hishu el nidvas siberhu. The oilus kayitz hamizbeach, right? When you have a carbon that can't be brought as an ashram, so you sell to someone else who needs to bring an ashram, and then, you wait for it to get a mumum, and then you sell it, and then use that money to buy a oil kayis hamizbeach, because the ashram, for whatever reason, is not necessary anymore. So this oil that's brought using that money is an oil like as a dessert for the mizbeach, and that's in the nidvas tzibur. So on that, we say it's not considered oilus ish, and that's what Rabbi Yehuda is saying, that it is the oil is not going to go to Gehanim, it's oilus hektish, and therefore it's not the pasuk is excluding it. This is good according to the Manda Amar, that when you bring these oilus l'kayet hamizbeach from the ashram, it becomes a nidvas tzibur. According to the Manda Amar that says it doesn't become oilus kayetz hamizbeach that belongs to the tzibur, but rather it still belongs to the original owner. You take that money, you buy oila, and he brings it as an oila. The owner brings it oila. It still is an oilus ish, so you can't be excluding that. So Amar Rava, ha'oila oila rishona. Now the pasuk is excluding, even though this is an oilus ish. The Torah is telling you that it's only the original. The oil goes to Kehanim, only the original oil. Over there, it happens to be talking about a different topic. It's talking about where do you know that that nothing can come before the Tamid Shel Shachar, and it says ha'oila means the first oila of the day. But over here also it means ha'oila means the first oila. You only have this din that of oilus ish on the original oila, not an oila that's coming as a replacement for an ashram. So the pasuk is, we thought it was coming from oilus ish, but it really is coming from ha'oila, or we're qualifying that the din of oira goes to Gehanim does not include an oila that's a replacement for a different carbon. What time is it? 7:06. Amar Rebevu Amar Aviane, he says it's coming to exclude a different thing. Prat lamatvis oila lebedek habayis, coming to exclude someone who had an oila that he had separated. He said, I'm giving this behema as an oila, and then he said, I'm giving the oila, this carbon oila that I'm about to bring, this animal, I'm giving a lebedek habayis. So this would work according to Manama, that the kedusha bedek habayis will be typhus even in the carbon. So then we can understand when the Torah says oilus ish, this is no longer an oilus ish. It's now kachim. It's oil that belongs to bedek habayis in some senses. So that's why it's included. According to Manama midiraisa, it does become bedek habayis. Hanimili basar. That's only the gabi the basar. But ar toughest. Still the ar, even the Mandamar who says it doesn't become bedek habayis, when he takes his animal and says, I want it to be bedek habayis, this oil, I want it to be bedek habayis, the gabi the ar, it will become the property of the bedek habayis, and therefore it won't go to kehanim. It's coming like we said before, the chat we said earlier. He's agreeing with that shot that it's talking about oil that comes in Amaisus. Amle Rav Nuna Rav Nachman, Kaman. Who are you saying this like that? It's talking about Bamna. It says Rabbi Yehuda. Ahadabe. Rabbi Yehuda was chayzer from what he said that it's talking about min Maisus. Titania. Shisha l'nedava la'oila haba min Amaisus. This shisha, there was 6 containers that contained shkalim that we used for nidavas, for these nidvas oilas, these oilas l'kayis hamizbeach. And they were coming for the oilas haba min Amaisus. Shalayu kahanim zakayim ba'ira. And the kahanim did not get from that ar. So you see, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda saying that the oilah haba min Amaisus, the kahanim don't get the ar. So that's, he would understand, like we just said, that oilus ish is come to exclude oilus pral oilus hegdish is coming to exclude min Amaisus. Amar Rav Nechemia v'amar Rav Shimon, but Rav Nechemia asked on Rabbi Yehuda, Im came betalta midrash shel Yehuda hakayin. If you're going to learn like that, you're being mevatel the drush of Yehuda hakayin. The Tanya zeh medrash drush Yehuda hakayin. Asham hu asham lashem. Asham lashem. It's asham. He did an asham. He did something wrong. He did a sin to Hashem. Shekol sheba mishum chatas mishum asham yulakach by oilus. That it's coming to tell you anything that comes out chatas or an asham that he did. We have moistus of chatas or asham. You should buy oilus with it. Habasar lashem and oira l'kehanim. The basar goes to Hashem and the oira goes to kehanim. So we're saying over here that iris do go to the Kehanim even on Maisris. And this is when Nechemia said this to Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda did not respond. So he was maskim, he was chayzer on that which he said originally, that the Maisris are excluded, that they don't go to the Kehanim, the Maisris, because we see over here, Hidash and the Maisris do go to Kehanim. Amalei mar b'mai mukamla. So if you're not going to say that that's what the Hektish is excluded, it's not talking about Moses, what are you going to talk about? We're talking about someone who is Makdish all his Nechasim. When it says that Makdish doesn't go, the Ar doesn't go to Kehanim, it's talking about when someone, a person said, I'm giving everything I own to Bedek Habayis, because of Yeshua. The Tanan, HaMakdish Nechasim, Vayu Ben Behemis, Haruyas Lagabi Mizbeach. If someone's Makdish Nechasim, and included in that is some Behemis that are roy to be brought on the Mizbeach. Zecharm on the kevis, and some is charm and some on the kevis. So you're not allowed to. You can't be makdish to bedek habayis animals that roy lemizbech. They're going to have to be sold and be used for those karbanos, and then you have to give the money to mizbech. So zcharim yimkru l'tzarchei oilus. He says the zcharim you sell to be used for oilus. The kevis yimkru l'tzarchei zevchei shlam. The kevis will be sold to be used for people who need shlamim. And the rest will be, and the money will then be part of the bedek habayis, because you couldn't give the animals. Animals cannot go to bedek habayis, so they roy for a carbon. Yeshua says charm atzam yikruvu. He says you don't sell this charm, but rather you bring this charm as an oila. When the kevis yimkul shlamim v'yabi the meim oilas, and he says then you take the money and you bring with the oilas, but it doesn't become bedek habayis, because the person who gave everything to bedek habayis, his intention was that those things that could be karbanos, he wants them to be his own karbanos. But everything else, his regular assets, go to bedek habayis. When you say the person can decide, he divides some of it, the parts that he's being makdish on bedek habayis that are capable of being bedek habayis, the non-animals becomes bedek habayis, and the rest he wants to be actual animals. That's only the basar. Lava or toughest, but Lagabi the ar becomes ar of hektish, and therefore it doesn't go to the kehan. So that's the way he understands the din that we say hektish, the ar is excluded. It means the ar of these behemoths, when he's makdish's nechasim bedek habayis, that they're sold or they're even brought themselves, the ar the person intended that the Ar should go Lebedek Abayis, and therefore it doesn't go the Kehanim. Okay, we'll stop over here, and tomorrow we'll see about Gerim.
Thank you. Have a great day.
I know. Oh, I went late. Sorry.